Regarding our discussions during week 3, I can say congratulations on fulfilling last week's discussion requirements. Everyone earned 2.5 per forum, so that's very good. We had 2 discussions. The first one started with your experiences with Web 2.0 technologies in comparison to CMS technologies, and also ask you to reflect on synchronous versus asynchronous learning. You started talking about the technologies in particular, and the most popular amongst you was Facebook content management systems, document sharing tools like Google Drive and SharePoint and Prezi and other technologies that allow you to work together in documents of different kinds, and also web conferencing tools like Adobe Connect and Skype and Google Hangouts. You also compared Web 2.0 technologies with course management systems, and you basically found that CMS like Blackboard are more structured, they allow for more focused conversations because not everybody has access, and it's more controlled. It's not free for everyone to join in, whereas Web 2.0 technologies were more open and possibly easier to use and more collaborative. The second part of this discussion was about designing for social learning, and you identified some challenges, which included the diversity of learners and their characteristics and their personal situations, their personalities, also possible distractions that can happen, especially when people are communicating online synchronously, and also technology related issues, so not knowing enough about a tool or having technical issues, for example. You also discuss ways to overcome those challenges, and so for discussions and interaction online, it was good to have clear expectations and rules. It was useful to have somebody moderate the conversation, especially for those occasions when people tend to get off topic. And also it was important to train users on how to use the technology that they were going to use to support their interactions online. One more item that you discussed in this thread was about how social learning was a good fit or not with Merrill's criteria. And so basically, more often than not, transfer was the area that you guys thought was compatible with social learning, and also demonstration, activate prior knowledge and application to a lesser extent. And then the area that you thought was the least compatible was problem-based. The second discussion had to do with managing group collaboration, and you talked about different platforms that you had used to support online group work, and that included web conferencing like Skype and Adobe Connect, document sharing again like Google Docs and SharePoint, and also wikis. Email was another one that you mentioned a lot, and of course the content management system, which is usually the institution supported system. And in terms of challenges, you mentioned synchronizing schedules of different people, especially when they are in different time zones. Things like group dynamics, work ethics, distribution of workload was the next one. So things that were related to how the work was managed and then how each learner pulled their own weight in doing the work. And then you talked about best practices. So it was also good to have clear expectations and to use a combination of tools depending on things like the learning objectives, the kinds of activities that you were going to do with those learners, etc. And also it was important to assign roles, so make sure that everybody knew what their part of the process was, and so that it was clear who was going to work on what and when. Another part of the conversation was discussing synchronous versus asynchronous learning. And in general terms, you talked about flexibility, the kinds of interaction, and what were these two modes good for. And so synchronous was not necessarily flexible, but allowed for very immediate communication, and it was good for brainstorming and decision making, whereas asynchronous learning was more flexible. It allowed for more reflection, but the interaction is a bit more delayed because you have to wait for the next person to go online whenever it's most convenient for them to post their thoughts.